They say love is blind. But in my case, love wasn't just blind. It was financially illiterate. My name is Margaret. I spent 30 years curating art collections for the wealthiest CEOs in Silicon Valley. I could spot a fake Matisse from across a room. I knew the difference between a real signature and a forgery by the pressure of the brushstroke. I prided myself on my eye for detail, my intuition, my ability to smell a fraud. And yet, I sat in my marble-floored kitchen in Marin County, staring at a wire transfer authorization form for $300,000. The recipient wasn't a gallery in Paris or an auction house in London. It was an account linked to a royal protocol officer in Dubai. The man I was sending it to, Prince Zaid, told me I was his queen. He told me that in his world, money was just paper, but loyalty was gold. He promised me a life where I would never have to worry about loneliness again. I was about to press send. I was about to liquidate a significant portion of my Vanguard index funds, money meant for my long-term care, to help a billionaire prince unlock his inheritance. It sounds insane when I say it out loud now, but back then, it sounded like a fairy tale. I didn't press send. Instead, a notification from a background check service I'd almost forgotten about pinged on my phone. One simple PDF attachment. That file didn't contain a royal decree. It contained a police report from Lagos and a photo of the man I loved, holding a sign with a booking number. He tried to turn me into his personal ATM. So, I turned his life into a living hell. Obrigado por estar aqui. Acredito que esta história te ajuda ou você ajuda alguém a reconhecer golpistas, coisas que todos nós precisamos saber. Então, esse é o momento perfeito. Deixa o like e se inscreve. Você garante todas as próximas histórias sem precisar procurar. Agora, voltando. The silence in a 5-bedroom house is different from the silence in a studio apartment. It's heavier. It has echoes. Since my husband, Richard, passed away 4 years ago from a sudden cardiac arrest, the silence had become my roommate. I had money. Richard was a shrewd investor, and I had my own career. Between his life insurance payout, our real estate portfolio in the Bay Area, and my own diversified investments in municipal bonds and blue-chip stocks, I was worth somewhere north of $4 million. But you can't have a conversation with a municipal bond. You can't hug a real estate deed when you wake up from a nightmare at 3 a.m. My days were filled with superficial interactions. I had lunch with other widows at the club, where we talked about our grandchildren or our Pilates instructors. I volunteered at the museum. I kept busy. But being busy isn't the same as being alive. I joined Elite Singles. It felt safer than Tinder. The subscription fee alone, $499 a month for the VIP package, was supposed to filter out the riffraff. It promised to match me with intellectual equals, men who were vetted, successful, and looking for companionship, not a nurse or a purse. That's where I saw him. Profile name, Zaid A. Age, 58. Location, Dubai, San Francisco, London. Profession, private equity, sovereign wealth management status. Widowed. His photo was striking. He was standing on the deck of a yacht, wearing a white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up, sunglasses tucked into the collar. He had salt and pepper hair, a trimmed beard, and a tan that spoke of endless summers. In the background, the distinctive sail shape of the Burj Al Arab Hotel cut through the blue sky. His bio was understated, which I liked. Global investor, lover of horses, falconry, and classical architecture. I travel the world for business. But I am looking for a home for my heart. I value discretion, intellect, and kindness above all. I liked his profile on a Tuesday evening, after a particularly lonely dinner of leftover salmon and white wine. He messaged me within 10 minutes. Margaret, your profile says you appreciate Impressionism. Do you prefer the light of Monet or the shadows of Degas? It was such a specific, intelligent question. Most men opened with, "Hi, beautiful," or "How are you?" I typed back, feeling a flutter in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Degas. I find the shadows more honest. A woman of depth, he replied immediately. I am Zaid. It is an honor to meet you, even digitally. We talked for 3 hours that night. We didn't talk about money or jobs at first. We talked about art. He claimed to own a private collection in his penthouse in Dubai. He described paintings I knew intimately, talking about the texture of the canvas, the provenance. He was grooming me, but he was doing it with the precision of a surgeon. He was mirroring my interests, validating my intellect. He made me feel seen. For a woman over 50, being truly seen is the most potent aphrodisiac in the world. By the end of the week, we had moved from the app to WhatsApp. He explained that due to his high security clearance with the Emirati royal family, he couldn't use standard dating apps securely. It sounded plausible. Everything he said sounded plausible because it was wrapped in the language of extreme wealth. "I apologize if I am slow to reply today, my queen," he texted one morning. "I am in a board meeting with the Minister of Energy. We are discussing the new crypto regulation framework for the Emirates. Boring, bureaucratic nonsense, but necessary." He dropped keywords like crypto regulation, sovereign wealth fund, and liquid assets, casually, the way normal people talk about traffic or the weather. It established two things. He was incredibly powerful. He didn't need my money. Or so I thought. The first video call was a masterclass in staging. "I can only speak for 5 minutes," he texted. "My security team is sweeping the room for bugs, but I need to see your eyes." When the call connected, the image was crystal clear. He was sitting in what looked like a lavish office. Behind him, through a floor-to-ceiling window, I could see the glittering skyline of Dubai at night. He wore a traditional white kandura and a gutra on his head, looking regal. "Margaret," he said, his voice deep and accented, sounding like a mixture of Oxford English and Arabic softness. "You are even more radiant than your photos." I blushed. Actually blushed. "And you look very royal, Zaid." He laughed, a warm, hearty sound. This is just my uniform. Underneath, I am just a man who misses having a partner to share the sunset with." The call lasted 4 minutes. Just enough to hook me, not enough for me to notice the glitches. "I must go," he said abruptly, glancing off camera. "My advisors are here. I will dream of you, Margaret." The screen went black. I sat there, staring at my reflection in the dark iPad screen. My heart was racing. I was dating an Emirati prince. It was the kind of fantasy you read about in trashy novels, but it was happening to me. Over the next month, the prince integrated himself into every hour of my life. He sent me photos of his horses at the Godolphin stables. He sent me videos of the interior of a private jet, panning over beige leather seats and a glass of champagne, waiting for takeoff to London. "Wish you were in this seat next to me." He began to ask subtle questions about my life, framed as concern for our future compatibility. "My family is very traditional," he told me during a voice call. "They worry about gold diggers. It is a curse of my position. Everyone wants something from me. I need to know that you are independent, Margaret. That you are with me for me, not for the royal accounts." "I have my own money, Zaid," I said, almost defensively. "I'm retired, but I have a substantial portfolio. I don't need anyone to support me. I know, my love. I can sense your dignity. But my lawyers, they are sharks. Before we can make our relationship public, or before I can bring you to Dubai, they might ask for proof of your financial standing, just to prove you are not, how do Americans say it? A liability." I felt a surge of pride. I wanted to prove to this prince that I was his equal. "I have nothing to hide," I said. "My accounts are in order. I have investments with Charles Schwab and property assets." "Excellent," he purred. "That is a relief. We can be a power couple. I am looking at buying a vineyard in Napa Valley. Perhaps we could run it together. A retirement project?" The hook was set deep. He wasn't asking for money. He was vetting me to see how much money could be stolen. He was painting a picture of a shared future, a vineyard in Napa, that appealed exactly to my demographic. It wasn't a club or a party. It was a sophisticated, elegant retirement. But then, the first crack appeared. It was a Tuesday. Zaid had been traveling to Turkey to finalize a deal involving gold bullion reserves for the central bank. "Margaret," he messaged, "I am in Istanbul. The situation is complicated. The Turkish government has frozen the royal assets temporarily due to a diplomatic spat with the UAE. It is political theater, but it is annoying. Is everything okay? I asked. I am fine, but my accounts are locked. I cannot even pay the docking fees for the yacht or the hotel suite for my staff. It is embarrassing. A man of my stature, unable to access his own billions because of a computer glitch in the banking system. He sent a photo of a document. It looked incredibly official. It had the seal of the Central Bank of Turkey and the UAE coat of arms. It stated that account holder Zaid Al Maktoum had assets of $450,000 frozen, pending diplomatic clearance. My love, he wrote, I hate to ask. It burns my pride. But I need to pay the port authority immediately, or they will seize the vessel. It is a matter of national honor. Can you advance me a small liquidity transfer? I will wire it back to you plus 20% interest as soon as the freeze is lifted on Monday. How much is it? I typed, my fingers trembling slightly. It is a trivial amount. Just $45,000. I spend more than that on champagne in a month. But right now, I am helpless. I paused. $45,000 was not trivial to me. It was a new car. It was a year of college tuition for a grandchild. Zaid, I replied. I have to move funds around. That's a lot of liquid cash. Margaret, he sent a voice note. His voice sounded strained, almost crying. Do you not trust me? I showed you my balance. I am worth $500 million. This is like asking for a penny. If you cannot trust me with a penny, how can you be my queen? The manipulation was brilliant. He made me feel small for questioning him. He made the $45,000 seem like a test of my faith, not a financial transaction. Você percebe o que ele fez aqui? Ele inverteu a culpa. Em vez de ele ser o pedinte, ele me fez sentir culpada por ter dúvidas. É assim que eles quebram suas defesas psicológicas. Se você já sentiu essa pressão em algum relacionamento, comenta aqui embaixo. I told him I needed 24 hours. He was unhappy, claiming the port authority gave him a deadline of 12 hours. But I stood firm, not because I suspected him fully, but because accessing that much cash required me to physically go to the bank branch. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my living room. I looked at the photos he sent. The yacht, the private jet, the piles of gold bars he claimed were in the vault. Something bothered me about the photo of the gold. It was too perfect. The lighting was dramatic, like a movie set. I went to my office and opened my laptop. I remembered my late husband, Richard. He always said, trust, but verify, especially when zeros are involved. I pulled up the photo of the gold bars. I right-clicked and selected Search Image with Google. Results flooded in. The image wasn't from a vault in Istanbul. It was from a stock photography website called Shutterstock. The caption read, Gold bullion stacks in bank vault, 3D rendering. It wasn't even real gold. It was a computer graphic. My stomach dropped. I felt a cold sweat break out on my neck. Okay, I thought. Maybe he used a stock photo because he couldn't take a picture inside a high-security vault. That makes sense, right? Security protocols? I was bargaining with reality. I wanted to believe the lie because the truth was too painful. But I couldn't stop there. I looked at the document he sent from the central bank. I zoomed in on the signature of the bank governor. It looked pixelated, while the rest of the text was sharp. I opened a new tab. I searched for UAE Central Bank Governor signature. The signature on the document was completely different from the real governor's name. The prince had sent me a forgery, and not a very good one. I sat back in my chair, the silence of the house deafening. The man who whispered poetry to me, who promised me a vineyard in Napa, who called me his queen, was lying. But who was he? If he wasn't Prince Zaid, who was I talking to? I looked at the wire instructions he had sent me earlier. Bank name, Citigroup beneficiary. Name, Global Logistics Solutions, LLC. Address, 1445 West Avenue, Miami, Florida. Miami? I whispered. Why would a Turkish port authority use a consulting firm in Miami? I typed the address into Google Maps. It wasn't a corporate tower. It was a strip mall next to a laundromat and a cash-for-gold pawn shop. The rage didn't come immediately. First came the shame. Hot, burning shame. I was an educated woman. I was sophisticated. How could I have fallen for a man who used a stock photo of gold bars? But then, the rage came. It started in my chest and spread to my fingertips. He thought I was a stupid, lonely old woman. He thought I was an easy mark. He thought he could extract $45,000 from me and then disappear. I looked at the clock. It was 3 a.m. I had promised to wire the money by noon. I picked up my phone. Zaid had sent me a "good night, my love, pray for me" text. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a browser window and typed, "Romance scammer database Nigerian Prince Miami." Thousands of hits. Stories of women who lost everything. Their houses, their pensions, their dignity. Some had lost millions. I wasn't going to be one of them. But I wasn't just going to block him. Blocking him would let him move on to the next victim. The next lonely widow. No. I wanted to see who he was. I wanted to look him in the eye. The real eye. Not the stolen photo of a model. I formulated a plan. A dangerous plan. He wanted money? I would promise him money. Much more than $45,000. I would dangle a carrot so big that he would have to come out of the shadows to bite it. I was about to play a game of high-stakes poker with a criminal syndicate. I didn't know if he was in Dubai, Miami, or Lagos. But I knew one thing. Greed is a weakness, and I was about to exploit it. But when I sent the message that would change everything, I received a reply that made my blood run cold. He knew something about me that I hadn't told him. I stared at the phone. The message from Prince Zaid glowed in the dark room. "Margaret, I feel you are hesitating. You stopped replying. My security team is worried. They ran a check on your perimeter. Is everything quiet at your home on Tiburon Boulevard? The house with the blue door?" My blood ran cold. He knew my street. He knew the color of my front door. For a terrifying moment, I believed the lie. I believed that maybe he was powerful, that he had satellites or agents watching me. I stood up and checked the locks on my windows. I peered through the blinds into the foggy street. Was there a black sedan parked outside? Panic is a chemical reaction. It floods your brain and shuts down logic. I wanted to block him, delete my account, and call 911. But then, I took a breath. I forced myself to think like the art curator I used to be. When you analyze a painting, you look for the technique. What was his technique here? He wasn't using satellites. He was using Google Street View. My address was public record because of my husband's business filings years ago. If you Googled Margaret last name San Francisco, my deed showed up. If you put that address into Google Maps, you could see my blue door. He wasn't a spy. He was just a creep with an internet connection. The realization didn't make me less afraid, but it made me angry. He was using my privacy against me to bully me into paying $45,000. I sat back down at my computer. "Two can play this game," I whispered. If he wanted to talk about money and security, we would talk about it. But I needed to buy time to find out exactly who he was, and more importantly, where he was. If he was really in Dubai, he was untouchable. But if he was in the US, that was a different story. I formulated a response that would appeal to his greed. Scammers operate on a script. If you disrupt the script with the promise of a bigger payout, they often short-circuit. They get sloppy. I typed carefully. "Zaid, my love, I am sorry for the silence." I wasn't hesitating about the money. I was embarrassed. You see, the $45,000 isn't the problem. The problem is that my bank accounts are currently under audit because of a much larger transaction pending. I waited a minute. Let him sweat. Then I continued. "My late husband's life insurance trust is finally maturing next week. It is a payout of $2.4 million. But because I am a widow, the bank requires a beneficiary co-signer to release the full amount to an external investment account. I was going to ask you to be that co-signer, so we could invest it in your oil ventures. But if you are mad at me about the small $45K, maybe I should ask my cousin." I hit send. The response came in 12 seconds. The prince didn't care about his port fees anymore. "Margaret, my queen, do not involve your cousin. Family gets greedy. I am your partner. I have forgiven the silence. We must protect your millions. Tell me about this trust." He forgot about the $45,000 instantly. He was now chasing the $2.4 million ghost. The action of ruin shifted. He wasn't trying to ruin me for pennies anymore. He wanted the jackpot. And that was exactly where I wanted him, blinded by imaginary gold. Did you see the instant change? Greed is the weak point of every narcissist. He forgot his own lie about the emergency at the port as soon as he heard millions. If you're enjoying watching the hunter become the hunted, leave a like now. I needed to pin him down. A phone number can be spoofed. Photos can be stolen. But an IP address? That is a digital fingerprint. I remembered a seminar I attended on digital due diligence for high-value art auctions. The instructor had shown us how to use tracking pixels. I wasn't a coder, but I knew how to use a service called Grabify. I found a boring, legitimate-looking PDF article from the Wall Street Journal titled New Tax Regulations for International Wire Transfers. I took the link to the article and ran it through the Grabify shortener. I customized the URL so it looked like a Dropbox file. Dropbox secured docs, trust fund release. If he clicked this link, I would see his device type, his operating system, and roughly where in the world he was sitting. I messaged him again. Zaid, I need you to review this tax document. It's the form the bank needs the cosigner to understand. If you can read it and tell me it fits your royal protocol, I can put your name on the $2.4 million account tomorrow. I attached the trapped link. My heart was hammering. This was the moment of truth. If the IP address came back as Dubai, maybe he was real. Or maybe he was a sophisticated pro using a VPN. If it came back as Lagos or Accra, he was a classic West African scammer. But if it came back as the United States, I watched the Grabify dashboard, waiting for click. 5 minutes passed. He messaged, I am opening it now, darling. The internet on the yacht is slow. Bing. The dashboard lit up. New click detected. I leaned in, squinting at the screen. Date, time, 2023, 10/14, 09/42, Tom 15, UTC user. Agent, Mozilla 5.0, Windows NT 10.0. ISP, Comcast Cable Communications, IP location, Hayward, California, United States. I gasped. Hayward. Hayward is in the East Bay. It's a 45-minute drive across the San Mateo Bridge from my house. He wasn't in Dubai. He wasn't on a yacht in the Mediterranean. He wasn't even in Miami. He was less than 30 miles away. The prince was local. This changed everything. This wasn't just a financial crime anymore. This was a neighbor. Someone who could actually drive to my house. The threat about the blue door wasn't a Google search. Maybe he had actually driven past. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by a cold, hard clarity. He was in the jurisdiction of the Hayward Police Department, or the FBI San Francisco field office. But I needed more than an IP address. An IP address proves a device was there, but not who was holding it. I needed a face. I looked at the results again. He wasn't using a mobile phone. He was on a Windows PC. That meant he likely had a webcam. I needed to see him, but he always controlled the video calls. He claimed his security team managed the connection, which is why the quality was always perfect. Likely pre-recorded loops or stolen video feeds. I needed to catch him off guard. I texted him back. Did the document open, Zaid? The bank manager is here with me right now. She says she needs to verify your identity visually to authorize the co-signing. Just a 10-second video call. She needs to see you hold up 3 fingers to prove it's a live feed and not a recording. Banking regulations. I blamed the bank manager. Scammers hate bank managers, but they respect their authority because they are the gatekeepers of the money. Margaret, I am in my pajamas. It is late here in Turkey, he argued. Zaid, it's for $2.4 million put on a robe. The manager is leaving in 2 minutes. If we miss her, we wait another month for the trust cycle. Pressure, urgency, greed. The 3 weapons he used on me, I was now using on him. Fine. Calling now. I prepared my screen recording software. I took a deep breath. The Skype ringtone echoed in the silent house. I accepted the video. For a second, the screen was black. Then, a light flickered on. The image was grainy. It wasn't the high-definition office with the Burj Khalifa view. It was a messy room with beige walls. There was a dirty mattress in the corner, a poster of a rap artist on the wall, and sitting there, squinting at the camera, was not Prince Zaid. It was a man, maybe 40, balding, wearing a stained gray hoodie. He looked tired. He looked American. He quickly held up 3 fingers, realized his mistake, that his background filter wasn't on, and panicked. He slapped his hand over the camera lens. "Camera broken!" he shouted, his voice completely different. The smooth Arabic-British accent was gone. This voice was nasal, American. Audio only. Audio only. He hung up. I sat there, frozen. The recording had captured it. Maybe 2 seconds of his real face. I replayed the video. Pause. Frame by frame. There he was, the Prince of Dubai. A middle-aged man in a messy bedroom in Hayward, California. I took a screenshot of his face. Now I had his location, Hayward. I had his face. And I had his bank account details in Miami, likely a money mule. I opened the browser tab for the Romance Scammer Database, a forum run by victims and amateur sleuths. I uploaded the screenshot of his face into their face recognition search tool. It churned for a moment. Match found. A thread from 6 months ago popped up. Subject: The oil rig engineer scam, Oakland, Hayward area. Victim: Susan from Seattle. Story: This man stole $120,000 from me pretending to be an engineer on a rig. We video chatted once by accident, and I saw this face. Police didn't do anything because I wired the money voluntarily. The photo in the thread was the same man. Susan had identified him as Gary. His name wasn't Zaid. It was Gary. And he was a serial predator. I stared at Gary's face. He had destroyed Susan's life. He tried to destroy mine. He thought I was still on the hook for the $2.4 million. He texted me. "Sorry, love. Connection bad." Did the manager see the 3 fingers? He didn't know I had seen the poster on his wall. He didn't know I had matched him on a database. I wasn't going to just report him. The police ignored Susan. They might ignore me. No. To catch a man like Gary, I needed to bring him out into the open. I needed him to commit a crime so undeniable that the police would have no choice but to arrest him. I needed to lure him out of his hole in Hayward. I texted back, "Yes, my love. She saw it. The transfer is approved. But there is one final problem. The bank says for an amount over $1 million they cannot wire it to a business account. They need to hand over a certified cashier's check to the beneficiary or his authorized proxy, in person. I was inviting the devil to dinner. I didn't call the police immediately. Not yet. I knew from the forums that without a physical loss of money, the local police would likely file a report and forget about it. They would say, "Ma'am, he's in another city. It's a civil matter." Or worse, "You shouldn't have been on that dating site." I needed an ally who didn't care about jurisdiction, only results. I opened my contact list. Years ago, during a complex divorce case involving a client's art collection, I had worked with a forensic accountant named David. He was brilliant, cold, and connected to private investigators who specialized in asset recovery. I called him. "David, I need a referral. Not for taxes, for a ghost." 2 hours later, I was sitting in a nondescript office in Oakland, across the desk from a man named Jackson. Jackson wasn't like the PIs in movies. He didn't wear a trench coat. He looked like a retired high school football coach. Polo shirt, khakis, tired eyes. But his office was filled with server racks and high-end surveillance gear. I laid my dossier on his desk. The Prince Zaid profile, the fake bank documents from Turkey, the IP log from Hayward, the screenshot of Gary in his messy bedroom, and the match from the scammer database. Jackson flipped through the pages silently. He stopped at the photo of Gary. "I know this guy," Jackson grunted. "Not personally, but the MO. He's a Yahoo Boy proxy. Usually the brains are overseas, but they hire locals, guys with drug debts or gambling problems, to be the face, open the bank accounts, and pick up the cash. We call them catchers. Can we arrest him?" I asked. "For what?" Jackson leaned back. "Attempted fraud? Sure. But he'll be out on bail in 4 hours. He hasn't actually taken your money yet. The law is reactive, Margaret. You need him to commit a felony in front of a cop." "I have a plan," I said. leaning forward. I told him there's a $2.4 million cashier's check waiting for him. I told him he needs to meet a bank representative to sign for it. Jackson raised an eyebrow. You're baiting him. That's dangerous. If he realizes it's a trap, these guys can get violent. They have handlers watching them. I'm not meeting him, I corrected. You are. Jackson laughed, a dry, barking sound. I'm expensive. I have $4 million in assets, Jackson. I can afford you. I want him caught. I want his computer seized. I want the names of the other women he's bleeding dry. Jackson looked at the photo of Gary again. Then he looked at me. He saw the steel in my eyes. Okay, he said. But we do this my way. We need a controlled environment. And we need a prop that looks so real he salivates. Many victims give up here because they think they are alone against the world. But Margaret understood a vital lesson. If the system doesn't protect you, you hire your own system. What would you do in her place? Would you let it go, or hire Jackson? The next day was spent creating the bait. Gary, or Prince Zaid, was texting me every hour. My queen, have you arranged the meeting? My royal protocol officer is ready to fly in, but I told him I would handle this personally to protect your privacy. He was terrified I would change my mind. He was trying to sound regal, but the desperation leaked through. He was probably already spending the $2.4 million in his head. I replied, Zaid, good news. The bank has prepared the draft. It is a certified cashier's check drawn from Chase Private Client Services. But because of the Patriot Act and anti-money laundering laws, they cannot mail it. It must be handed to you or your legal proxy in the presence of a notary. I threw in Patriot Act and anti-money laundering to make it sound terrifyingly official. Scammers fear these words, but they also know they are real obstacles. It made the lie credible. I understand, he replied. Where? The Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco, the main lobby. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. My banker, Mr. Henderson, will be there with the check and the notary seal. The Fairmont. High traffic, cameras everywhere. Security. It was the only place safe enough. Now I had to create the check. This was where my background in art came in. I went to a specialty stationery store in Berkeley. I bought heavy linen paper, the kind used for high-end certificates. 120 Drial SM weight. Cream-colored. I sat at my computer and designed the check. I used the logo of a major bank. I found the specific font used for the routing numbers, MICR E13B. I printed it using a high-resolution laser printer. But a real check has texture. It has safety features. I used a faint watermark of a shield in the background. I used a micro pen to sign a jagged, unintelligible signature on the authorized officer line. When I held it up to the light, it looked perfect. Pay to the order of Zaid Al Maktoum. Amount, $2,400,000 and 0100. It was a masterpiece of forgery. Paradoxically, I was committing a crime, forging a check, to catch a criminal. But this piece of paper was worthless. It was a prop in a play. I sent a photo of the check to Gary, covering the account number with my thumb, for security. The reaction was immediate. Allah be praised, he texted. He broke character for a second. That is beautiful, Margaret. You are saving my empire. He took the bait. Hook, line, and sinker. But just as I felt in control, my phone rang. It wasn't Gary. It was a no-caller ID number. I answered. Margaret? A voice rasped. It wasn't Gary. It was deeper, colder. Who is this? We know you're not a stupid woman. Don't play games with the prince. If Mr. Henderson is a cop, we will visit the house with the blue door. They were watching closer than I thought. I froze. The voice on the phone wasn't the bumbling Gary from Hayward. This was the handler. Jackson had warned me about them. These are the guys who organize the rings. They sit in the shadows while the catchers take the risk. My instinct was to cancel, to run. But Jackson was sitting in my kitchen, checking his Glock 19. He saw my face go pale. What happened? Someone called, threatened me, said they know about the blue door. Jackson didn't blink. Good. That means they are spooked. But they are also greedy. They wouldn't call if they weren't planning to show up. They are testing you, shaking the tree to see if you fall out. What do I do? You get angry, Jackson said. Scammers expect fear. They don't expect rage. Rage implies you are genuine. If you were a cop setting a trap, you would be calm. If you were a rich, entitled woman who is being insulted, you would be furious. I took a deep breath. I channeled every ounce of frustration I had felt over the last month. The lonely nights, the fake poetry, the sheer manipulation. I texted Gary. I just got a threatening call from one of your staff. How dare you? I am trying to hand you $2.4 million and you threaten me? The deal is off. I am shredding the check. Go find another queen. I turned off my phone. Now we wait, Jackson said, pouring himself a coffee. Give him 20 minutes to panic. It was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I stared at the blank screen. Had I pushed too hard? Had I scared them off forever? 18 minutes later, I turned the phone back on. 15 missed calls. 40 text messages. No, Margaret. It was a mistake. It was a rogue security guard. He is fired. Please, my love, my life depends on this money. The Turkish government will kill me. I am begging you, do not shred it. I will be there. I will come alone. I swear on my mother's grave. I looked at Jackson. He smiled, a thin, predatory smile. He's desperate, Jackson said. He owes money to people. Probably the guy who called you. If he doesn't bring home that check, he's in trouble. We own him now. I replied to Gary, cold and terse. 1 chance, 2 p.m., Fairmont lobby. If I see anyone else, if I feel unsafe, Mr. Henderson leaves and the check burns. Do you understand? I understand. I will be the man in the blue blazer. I will be humble. The stage was set. That was a lesson in reverse psychology. Margaret used the arrogance of someone with money, her persona, to validate the lie. If she had been afraid, they would have known it was a trap. Anger is what sold the truth. Would you have that courage? The Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco sits atop Nob Hill like a palace. It's all marble columns, gold leaf, and tourists drinking high tea. It smells of expensive perfume and old money. I arrived at 1 p.m. I wasn't going to be visible. I sat in the mezzanine lounge overlooking the main lobby. I wore large sunglasses and a scarf. From my vantage point, I could see the main entrance and the concierge desk. Jackson was downstairs. He wasn't playing Mr. Henderson. We hired an actor for that, an older gentleman named Arthur, a retired lawyer who owed Jackson a favor. Arthur looked the part. Tweed suit, briefcase, an air of bored bureaucracy. Jackson was sitting in the lobby reading a newspaper, blending in. 2 off-duty police officers, friends of Jackson working private security detail, were stationed near the exits. We had notified the SFPD about a potential grand larceny in progress, but without a crime, they wouldn't send a squad. However, if Gary grabbed the check and tried to run, or if he threatened Arthur, that was assault or robbery. That was arrestable. 1:55 p.m. My phone buzzed. I am parking. I am nervous, my queen. Just go to the concierge, I texted. Look for the man with the leather briefcase near the fountain. 2:00 p.m. The revolving doors spun. My heart stopped. It wasn't Gary. It was a woman. She was young, maybe 25. She looked terrified. She wore a cheap business suit that didn't fit well. She was clutching a phone, looking around frantically. She walked up to the fountain. She spotted Arthur. I whispered into my headset, connected to Jackson. Jackson, it's a woman. Target is not Gary. Repeat. Target is a female. Jackson's voice came back calm. I see her. She's a mule. Or another victim. The woman approached Arthur. I could see her shaking from the balcony. Mr. Henderson? She asked. Arthur nodded, playing his part. I am. Are you the representative for Mr. Al Maktoum? Yes, she squeaked. He couldn't find parking. He sent me. I'm his assistant. Gary is outside, Jackson whispered in my ear. He's in a silver Honda Civic. Plates match the Hayward address. He sent the girl in so he could get away if it goes wrong. Smart coward. This complicated things. If we detained the girl, Gary would see it and drive away. We needed Gary. Arthur needs to deny her, I commanded. Tell her the protocol requires the principal's signature. Downstairs, I saw Arthur shake his head. He tapped his briefcase. He pointed to the door. The girl looked ready to cry. She spoke into her phone, probably an open line to Gary. She turned back to Arthur. He says he is coming in. Please wait. The girl retreated to the side. We waited. 3 minutes later, the revolving doors spun again. This time it was him. The man from the video call. The man from the poster-filled bedroom. He was wearing a blue blazer that was 2 sizes too big. He had tried to comb his thinning hair. He looked sweaty, shifty, and greedy. He walked toward Arthur. He walked toward the fake check. He walked toward his doom. But as he reached out his hand to take the envelope from Arthur, he stopped. He looked up, directly at the mezzanine, directly at me. Did he see me? Or was it pure instinct? Gary didn't see me. He was looking at the security camera dome on the ceiling above the mezzanine. His paranoia was fighting a war against his greed, and greed was winning. He turned back to Arthur. He wiped his sweaty palms on his oversized blazer. I am Zaid, he mumbled, his voice cracking. I am the proxy. Give me the check. Arthur, maintaining his composure like the seasoned actor he was, held onto the envelope tight. I need a signature of receipt, sir. Right here. Arthur pushed a clipboard forward. This was the legal trigger. Jackson had explained it to me. If he just holds the envelope, he can say it was a mistake. If he signs for it using a fake identity to obtain funds, that is clear-cut fraud and forgery. Gary grabbed the pen. He scribbled Zaid al-Maktoum quickly, his hand shaking so violently the clipboard rattled against the marble table. Thank you, Arthur said, releasing his grip on the envelope. Gary snatched it. He tore the corner open, peering inside to see the check. He saw the watermark. He saw the $2,400,000 figure. A smile broke across his face, a grotesque, terrified smile of relief. He thought he had won. He thought his debts were paid. He turned to leave, grabbing the young woman's arm roughly. Let's go, he hissed. That was the signal. Jackson stood up from his armchair 10 feet away. He folded his newspaper. Gary, Jackson shouted. Not Prince. Gary. The name hit him like a physical blow. Gary froze. He spun around, eyes wide. Who? He stammered. Private investigator, Jackson said, flashing a badge that looked official enough to a panicked criminal. And the SFPD is outside. Drop the check. Gary panic brain took over. He didn't drop the check. He didn't surrender. He shoved the young woman into Jackson, using her as a human shield, and bolted toward the side exit, the one leading to the gift shop. Run! He screamed to no one. The lobby erupted. A family of tourists dropped their luggage. The concierge ducked. But Gary wasn't an athlete, and Jackson wasn't alone. As Gary sprinted past the fountain, slipping slightly on the polished marble, one of the off-duty officers we had hired stepped out from behind a pillar. He didn't tackle him. He just extended a stiff arm, clotheslining the Prince of Dubai. Gary hit the floor with a sickening thud. The envelope flew from his hand, sliding across the floor and coming to a stop at the feet of an elderly woman drinking tea. Stay down, the officer commanded, pressing a knee into Gary's back. The young woman, the mule, was screaming. I didn't know. He told me he was my boyfriend. I didn't know. Jackson had her by the elbow, gentle but firm. Sit down, miss. If you're a victim, you have nothing to worry about. But don't run. The chaos settled into a heavy, buzzing silence. The hotel security was rushing in now, radios blaring. This was my moment. I stood up from the mezzanine. I adjusted my scarf. I walked down the grand staircase. My legs felt heavy, but my head was high. I wasn't hiding anymore. I walked across the lobby. The sound of my heels on the marble clicked rhythmically. Click, click, click. I walked past Arthur, who gave me a subtle nod. I walked past the sobbing girl. I stopped right in front of Gary, who was pinned to the ground, his cheek pressed against the cold stone. He looked up at me. He squinted. Who are you? He wheezed. I slowly removed my sunglasses. I looked him dead in the eye. Hello, Zaid, I said, my voice ice cold. Did the bank manager see your 3 fingers? Recognition dawned on him. His eyes bulged. Margaret? He whispered. It came out as a question, as if he couldn't reconcile the wealthy digital victim with the woman standing over him like a judge. You threatened my house, I said, leaning down so only he could hear. You threatened the blue door. Well, Gary from Hayward, now I'm threatening you. I have your face, I have your IP address, and now the police have you with a forged signature for a $2.4 million theft. It was just a game, he cried out, tears mixing with the grime on his face. I didn't take any money. It's just a game. No, I stood up. Games have rules. You just broke the law. The real SFPD sirens were wailing outside now. The hotel manager was frantic, but Jackson was handling him, showing permits and explaining the situation. I looked at the envelope on the floor. The fake check. The illusion that had destroyed him because he was too greedy to see the trap. Did you feel the weight of that moment? That second when the predator realizes it has become the prey? It's for moments of justice like that I tell these stories. If you applauded Margaret going down those stairs, smash that like button now. The next 2 hours were a blur of bureaucracy. The San Francisco police took custody of Gary, whose real name turned out to be Gary Miller, a 42-year-old with a record for petty theft and drug possession. Because the attempted theft amount was over $100,000, and because it involved wire fraud interstate elements, the detectives took it seriously. They seized his phone. That phone was the gold mine. I was asked to give a statement at the station. Jackson came with me. You did good, Jackson said as we sat in the waiting room. Most people freeze. You executed. I don't feel good, I admitted. My hands were finally starting to shake as the adrenaline faded. He looked so pathetic. On the internet, he was a monster. In person, he was just a loser in a cheap jacket. That's the banality of evil, Jackson said. But don't let his looks fool you. He destroyed 3 other women's lives. We found the chats on his phone before we handed it over. One woman in Ohio lost her house. The detective, a woman named Martinez, came out. Mrs. Thorne? She asked me. We have him in holding. He's talking. He's talking a lot. He wants a deal. What kind of deal? He says he's just a bottom feeder. He claims the handler, the guy who called you, is the real threat. He wants to give up the network in exchange for leniency. This was the subplot coming full circle. The voice on the phone. Do you believe him? I asked. We checked his texts, Martinez said. He has messages from a number in Nigeria and a forwarding number in Miami. It looks like a classic Yahoo Boy syndicate. Gary collects 10% of the take, keeps 5% for the mule, the girl, and sends the rest via crypto to the bosses. The girl in the lobby, it turned out, was a romance victim too. She thought she was dating Gary. He told her he was a private investigator and she was helping him on a case. He used her love to make her an accomplice. She wasn't a criminal. She was me, just younger and less lucky. I felt a pang of sorrow for her. I asked Detective Martinez, "Can I speak to the girl? The one in the lobby? She's being processed as a witness, not a suspect. She's in the break room. She's devastated." I walked into the break room. The girl, her name was Jessica, was huddled in a blanket staring at a cup of coffee. Jessica? She looked up. Her mascara was running. He said he loved me. She sobbed. He said we were going to get married. I sat down next to her. I put a hand on her shoulder. He told me the same thing, Jessica. He told me he was a prince. She laughed, a bitter, broken sound. He told me he was an undercover FBI agent. That's why he needed me to pick up the package, because he was deep cover. We sat there, 2 women separated by 30 years, but united by the same lie. The prince and the FBI agent were just Gary, a man who used stories to steal souls. But the story wasn't over. Gary had unlocked his phone for the police, and deep in his WhatsApp archives, they found a file named Leeds VP List. My name was on it, but so were names of judges, politicians' wives, and CEOs. Gary wasn't just fishing for widows. He was part of a massive surveillance operation, and the handler wasn't happy that Gary had been caught. As I left the station, my phone rang again. Same, no caller ID. I looked at Jackson. It's him. Answer it, Jackson said. Let the police trace it. The phone buzzed in my hand like a live grenade. The screen displayed no caller ID. Detective Martinez gestured frantically for me to answer. She pointed to a technician in the corner who was typing furiously on a laptop, ready to trace the signal. I pressed accept and put it on speaker. Margaret? The voice hissed. It was the same raspy, cold tone from before. The handler. You made a mistake. You think arresting the idiot stops the machine? Gary is a pawn. I have knights. I have rooks. My heart hammered, but I looked at Jackson, who gave me a steady nod. Don't show fear. And I have the San Francisco Police Department listening to this call, I said, my voice steady and loud. Say hello to Detective Martinez. There was a pause. A silence so thick it felt heavy. You are bluffing, the voice sneered. You are just an old woman with too much money and no husband. That stung. He knew exactly where to aim. He aimed at my insecurity, my loneliness. But he underestimated my rage. I am a woman who just dismantled your Bay Area operation, I retorted. We have Gary's phone. We have the VIP list. We have the crypto wallet addresses. The police are freezing your mule accounts in Miami as we speak. This was a partial bluff. We hadn't frozen Miami yet, but it had to sound convincing. The voice cracked. The cool facade slipped. You listen to me? No, you listen. I cut him off. I am not your victim. I am the reason you are going to lose millions this quarter. Burn your phones. Run back to whatever hole you crawled out of. If you contact me, my family, or Jessica again, I will spend every cent of my fortune hunting you down. I won't use cops. I'll use mercenaries. Do you understand? I didn't wait for an answer. I hung up. The room was silent. Detective Martinez looked at me with wide eyes. Mercenaries? She asked, raising an eyebrow. I improvised, I said, exhaling a breath I felt I had been holding for a month. Did you get him? The technician shook his head. It's a VoIP number routed through 3 VPNs, Russia, Brazil, then a server in Delaware. We can't get a physical location on the handler instantly, but, he tapped his screen. He stayed on the line long enough for us to fingerprint the digital signature. We can flag this signature. If he tries to set up a new operation using the same infrastructure, the FBI Cyber Division will know. It wasn't a pair of handcuffs, but it was a digital blockade. We had blinded them. Did you feel the satisfaction of hanging up on him? Sometimes victory isn't about catching the untouchable boss, but showing that we're not afraid. If you've ever wanted to tell a con artist a few home truths, leave a like. The adrenaline crash hit me an hour later. I was sitting in the precinct lobby, signing statement papers. Across the room, Jessica, the girl from the hotel, was being released. The police had determined she was unaware of the fraud. Gary had groomed her for months, convincing her he was a secret agent and she was helping national security. She was a victim of a romance scam nested inside an employment scam. She walked towards the exit, looking small and broken. Her cheap suit was rumpled. She had no purse, evidence, no phone, evidence, and clearly no money. I stood up. Jessica. She flinched. She looked at me with shame. I'm sorry, ma'am. I really didn't know. I know you didn't, I said. Where are you going? I have to take the bus back to Hayward. I live with my aunt. You're not taking the bus, I said. I turned to Jackson. Can you drive her home? Jackson sighed, but he smiled. On the clock? On the clock, I confirmed. I opened my purse. I took out a checkbook. Not the fake one I made for Gary, my real one. I wrote a check for $5,000. Here, I handed it to her. Jessica looked at the check and recoiled. I can't take this. I helped him. I almost stole from you. You didn't steal. You were used. This isn't charity, Jessica. This is a consulting fee. Consulting? Yes. You know how he talks to younger women. You know his scripts. I'm starting a blog to warn women. I might need to ask you questions later about how he tricked you. This is a retainer. It was a lie, mostly. I just wanted her to have a cushion so she wouldn't be desperate enough to fall for the next prince who offered her a way out. She took the check, her hands trembling. She hugged me. It wasn't a polite hug. It was a desperate, rib-crushing embrace. She smelled of fear and cheap vanilla perfume. "Thank you," she whispered. "He told me I was stupid. He said I was lucky he chose me." "He was the stupid one," I whispered back. "He chose the wrong women." Watching her leave with Jackson, I realized something profound. The romance scam industry relies on isolation. They isolate the widow in her mansion. They isolate the young girl in her poverty. They make us feel special so we don't talk to anyone else. The moment we talk, the moment we connect, their power evaporates. I went back to Detective Martinez. "What happens to the list? The VIP list on Gary's phone?" "We're running it now," Martinez said. "Mrs. Thorne, there are over 50 names on this list. Women in San Francisco, Seattle, Vancouver. We are sending out warnings to all of them tonight. You didn't just save your money, you stopped a bleeding wound." I nodded. I felt tired, but lighter. I drove home across the Golden Gate Bridge. The fog was rolling in, hugging the marine headlands. Usually, the fog made me feel lonely. Tonight, it felt protective. I pulled into my driveway, the house with the blue door. It looked different. It wasn't a fortress of solitude anymore. It was just a house. And I wasn't just a widow living in the past. I walked inside. I poured myself a glass of wine, a real, expensive Cabernet, not the imaginary champagne Zaid promised. I sat at my computer. I still had the romance scammer database tab open. I logged in. I found the thread about Gary. I typed a new reply. Update. Caught. He is in custody in San Francisco. His name is Gary Miller. If you are a victim, contact Detective Martinez at SFPD case *8921. He will not hurt anyone else. I hit post. Within seconds, the replies started coming in. "Thank you. OMG, he messaged me last week. You are a hero." I wasn't a hero. I was just a woman who got tired of being polite. I thought it was over. But 3 days later, I received a package in the mail. No return address. My heart stopped. Had the handler found me? I opened it carefully, fearing the worst. Inside, there wasn't a bomb. There wasn't a threat. There was a small, leather-bound book, and a note that would change the direction of my retirement completely. I held the package with trembling hands. I used a kitchen knife to slice the tape, angling the box away from me just in case. I lifted the lid. There was no ticking sound, no white powder. Inside, nestled in black velvet, was a book. It was an antique, leather-bound first edition of The Architecture of Truth, a rare architectural treatise from the 1920s. It was worth at least $5,000. On top of the book was a thick cream envelope. Handwritten. I opened the note. "Dear Margaret, you don't know me, but I know you. My name is Elena. I am the CEO of a biotech firm in Seattle. Last week, the SFPD contacted me. They told me my name was on a target list found on a phone belonging to a man named Gary. I was 3 days away from investing $5 million in a sovereign wealth fund with a man claiming to be Prince Zaid's business partner. He had the documents, the accent, everything. I believed him. Because of you. Because you stood up. Because you trapped him. Because you handed over that phone. The police warned me in time. You didn't just save my money. You saved my company and the jobs of 200 people. I read in the police report, my lawyer got access, that you are an art curator. Please accept this gift. It is from my personal library. It belongs to a woman who knows the value of authenticity. With deepest gratitude, Elena." I sat down on my kitchen floor and cried. Not tears of sadness, but tears of release. For months, I had felt stupid. I felt like a lonely, gullible old woman who fell for a pretty picture. The handler had called me useless. But I wasn't useless. I was a shield. I picked up the book. It smelled of old paper and history. It was real. Unlike the gold bars, unlike the yacht, unlike the prince, this was tangible, heavy, and real. The shame that had been weighing down my shoulders evaporated. I hadn't just fought for myself. I had fought for Elena, for Jessica, for the woman in Ohio who lost her house. I looked at the blue door of my house, the door Gary had threatened. It wasn't a mark of vulnerability anymore. It was a badge of honor. Can you imagine her relief, knowing that her pain prevented the ruin of others? Evil triumphs when good men remain silent, Margaret screamed, and the world heard. 6 months later, the silence in my house is gone. It's replaced by the sound of typing, phone calls, and occasionally Jackson laughing in my living room as we go over case files. I didn't go back to curating art. I found a new passion. I started a nonprofit organization called the Blue Door Project. Our mission: to provide forensic accounting and emotional support to women over 50 who have been targeted by romance scammers. We aren't the police. We are faster. We help victims track their crypto. We help them report to the FBI correctly. And most importantly, we listen to them without judgment. Jessica works for me part-time. She handles our social media, warning young women about job scams and modeling scams. She's back in college, studying cybersecurity. She calls me Aunt Maggie. Gary is currently serving a 5-year sentence in a state penitentiary. He writes me letters sometimes, asking for forgiveness. I don't reply. He has plenty of time to find forgiveness in his cell. The handler? We never caught him physically, but thanks to the digital fingerprint we captured that day, the FBI shut down 3 of his server nodes in Eastern Europe. He lost millions. He knows my name, and I know he fears it. I still date, occasionally. But now, on the first date, I don't ask about their favorite color. I ask for their last name, and I run a background check before the appetizers arrive. Some men find it intimidating. The right man will find it impressive. I walked out onto my deck, holding a glass of wine. The sun was setting over the San Francisco Bay, turning the water into liquid gold. Real gold. I took a sip. They tried to steal my future. Instead, they gave me a purpose. My name is Margaret. I am not a victim. I am the one who knocks back. Real life is like that, full of injustices, but also moments where the truth prevails. Because you've watched this far, I know you want more stories like this. So you need to do 3 things. First, leave a like. The YouTube algorithm will show you more content like this, and it also helps other people find these stories. Second, subscribe and turn on notifications. You'll get a new story every week straight to your feed without having to search. These are stories of family justice, life twists and turns, people getting what they deserve, and each one is more intense than the last. Third, go down to the comments and tell us, have you ever been through something similar? Your experience can help someone who is going through this now, and we read all the comments. Check this out. 87% of people who watch videos on YouTube forget to subscribe and then can't find the channel anymore. That's why they miss out on the next stories, the plot twists, the satisfying endings. You don't want to be one of those people, right? Click subscribe now and turn on notifications. Hugs, and see you soon.